And that is 5. 5 of those. Don't know if they all came through, but there it is. That great theme music presented live here at 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir. Your favorite tune, spinning them all day, all night.
That's Robert Nasir on bass.
Yes.
And drums.
MC Nasir, and the MC stands for Merry Christmas. Thank you for joining us. This is 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir, and we are glad you are here. It's one of those nights where we're talking fast because we're going to go real fast because we're going to make this a real short show. 5 minutes, it's going to be over. Okay.
I've got some micro machines to sell.
Micro machines, yes.
Micro machines.
Oh, we're in that advertising state of mind, aren't we? We should do that with philosophy. How about that? Sunday, live, Monster Philosophy at Pontiac Silverdome. Okay, I'm in this exaggerated advertising state of mind, but let me go back to where I need to be because today is Sunday. Today is Sunday, November 20th, 2022. This is the 324th day of, there's only 356 days in a year. 324th day of the year. You have 41 days left to make 2022 your best year yet. It's been pretty damn good so far, and yet we've still got another Thanksgiving. We already had one. Great Lakes Objectivist Thanksgiving, but looking forward to this Thursday too. This whole week, in fact. Christmas is in just 35 days. If you are going to buy somebody something and you haven't bought it yet, time to think, what is that something I'm going to buy someone? Do that thing. But yes, Thanksgiving in 4 days, and on this date, on this cheerful note, the Nuremberg trials began. 24 high-ranking Nazis go on trial in Nuremberg, Germany for atrocities committed during World War II beginning on November 20th, 1945. The Nuremberg trials were conducted by an international tribunal made up of representatives from the United States, the Soviet Union for some reason, God knows why they would have been our allies in all of that, France, and Great Britain. It was the first trial of its kind in history. And the defendants faced charges ranging from crimes against peace to crimes of war to crimes against humanity. As if there's that much difference between those three. The Lord Justice Geoffrey Lawrence, the British member, presided over the proceedings, which lasted 10 months and consisted of 216 court sessions. On October 1st, 1946, 12 of the architects of Nazi policy were sentenced to death. 7 others were sentenced to prison terms ranging from 10 years to life. Why do I bring this up? Well, it happened on this date that those trials began, but also justice is done.
Mm-hmm. At least for those who didn't escape to South America.
Yes, and started raising new Hitlers using the DNA that they collected.
Yeah. You know, that whole thing was bad news, man. That whole National Socialism stuff.
Yeah. You know,
nothing good coming out of that.
For every crime like this, you can find at least some degree of justice. And my whole point is, sometimes we think things are really, really bad, and some things are really, really bad. But justice ultimately remains a value to the vast majority of people. Mm-hmm. Whether they exact it in the ways that we think that they should, whether everybody comes to the ends that they deserve or not, justice is a thing that gets done. But also on this date, Garrett Morgan patented the 3-position traffic signal. Love, love, love that. On November 20th, 1923. Now, there were traffic lights before that, before 1923, but they were stop and go. And Garrett Morgan, on this date, the U.S. Patent Office granted him the patent for the 3-position traffic signal. We all love that yellow light. Slow down. Be sure you're going to be able to make it across this intersection, and if not, hit those brakes. Though Morgan's was not the first traffic signal.
I thought yellow meant speed up.
Yellow means speed up. Make sure you're going to get through that light. That's right.
Yeah, by the way, Jim is reporting that we look a little fuzzy. That's because we're really sweet and cute and huggable today. That's just a little bit more than that.
I'm seeing good. Now, we didn't use the wired connection, but I don't look that fuzzy on my monitors.
Yeah, I think it comes in and out.
It might be coming and going. Well, next time we will use the extra. You know, I've been doing the Thursday shows
Oh, Robin says it doesn't look funny to him.
Okay.
Funny. Fuzzy to him.
Well, I always look funny, but I have you to make up for that.
Yeah. I did actually smear a little Vaseline on the lens before we started.
Oh, are you ready for your close-up, Mr. DeMille?
Yes.
Yes. I love the story of Garrett Morgan. He was an inventor, and he also invented a hood for fire departments to use going into fires. It was a predecessor of the gas mask. And this is an African-American man, 46-year-old inventor. When he got the patent on the three-element traffic light, sold it to General Electric for $40,000. You know what $40,000 was worth back in 1923? $3
billion.
Yeah, I don't know what it was worth, but a hell of a lot. And here's what's interesting about this story to me. Not just that he was a black man at a time when black men didn't get a fair shake, but Morgan only received a 6th grade education at Branch Elementary School in Claysville, then moved in search of work at the age of 14 to Cincinnati, Ohio. It's interesting to me because we've been talking about education lately, and nowadays in 2022, it is considered a tragedy when somebody drops out of school. And it is. It absolutely is. But it's interesting that expectation that we need to get to where everybody has at least a high school level of education. And ideally, a lot of people go to college. And ideally, college is actually worth something versus taking those underwater basket weaving courses.
That's right.
Or the multicultural equivalents of 2022.
Yeah, 70s psychedelic rock, of course. Yes,
I actually took a course in contemporary, it's like pop rock music.
Really?
Yes, at OCC, Only Chance College. Only Oakland Community College.
Tell me, what year was that?
That would have been in the early 80s.
Wow, that's a great time to study contemporary music.
Yes, I did take classical music courses as well. And I did actually graduate from OCC, which is more than I can say for my time at U of M. But all kudos go out to Garrett Morgan. He was the man. A happy birthday to the late Edwin Hubble. He actually was born in 1889, the great astronomer, discoverer of galaxies, the man who really figured out the redshift. There was some information or some speculation a few years before Hubble did, but he was the one who really pinned down, here's what the redshift is telling us about the recession of the galaxies. Born in Marshville, Missouri in 1889, lived to be 1953. As we know, the Hubble Space Telescope, launched in 1990, was named in his honor. It's also, and you can find this on the internet, I'm not making this up, it is National Absurdity Day.
All right.
Obviously one of these new made-up, very whimsical holidays, and people use that as a reason to do silly and whimsical things. Is it a coincidence, then? National Absurdity Day is also Joe Biden's birthday. Yes, the President of the United States turns 80 years old today. I know some people out there, based on his performance, are saying, only 80?
Only 80. Yeah.
I didn't look it up, but I think
Happy birthday, Uncle Joe.
He's our oldest president ever.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
I'm not a fan of the president. I think the only thing I like about him is that he replaced the last president. And so one thing that I will definitely like about the next president is that he or she will replace this one. But nonetheless, it's Joe Biden's birthday, so go to whitehouse.com and wish him a happy birthday.
Well, I like him better with gridlock in the house.
Yes. It is National Absurdity Day. So I was only joking when I said to go to whitehouse.com. Some of you may know the story about that. I would have thought by now they would have straightened this out, but they haven't. Whitehouse.com is a pornography site.
Whoops, I was about to click enter on that. Whoops.
You would think the government would have bought that site back from whoever owns it, whatever it would have cost. But no. And whitehouse.org is a parody site. And they're actually, right now, they're selling coffee mugs of the other guy, DJT, the host of The Apprentice. They're making fun of him. They're not fans. But I thought .org meant nonprofit. So maybe they're giving the profits to the former president's ex-wives. No, that would take too much money. There's too many of them. So happy birthday, Joe Biden, you rascal, you. Also, and this is really strange, because I'm reading these in descending order of how old they are, and I've only got a couple more. Happy birthday to Joe Walsh. Oh. And I don't mean the politician, I mean the guitar player.
Mm-hmm, that's what I thought.
The good Joe Walsh. Not to pick on the other Joe Walsh, but whenever I hear news stories about Joe Walsh, I always think, what happened to Joe Walsh? But there's a politician out there. Anyway, Joe Walsh, American guitarist, Life's Been Good, Rocky Mountain Way, the Eagles, In the City. Of course, he played the guitar, actually two guitarists, but he was one of the two guitarists, played the guitar solo on Hotel California. My favorite Joe Walsh song is actually Meadows from the album The Smoker. Wow, I lost the name of the title. Let's see, do I have it written down here? No, I don't. The Smoker You Drink, the Player You Get is the name of the album. When I was a little kid, I couldn't figure out what the smoker you get, the player you drink. What?
The smoker you drink.
Smoker you drink, the player you get.
Player you get.
And it turns out it's an expression on all of those. It's all of those other expressions. Like musicians would say, the higher you get, the better you play. Or people in bars would say, the drunker I get, the prettier you look. So anyway, Joe Walsh is exactly the kind of guy. Very clever, very smart, but really silly, too, to name an album, The Smoker You Drink, the Player You Get. And that one's got my two favorite songs, Meadows and Rocky Mountain Way by Joe Walsh. Also love The Confessor. Obviously, a lot of people are like, Life's Been Good. And life's been good to me so far, too, Joe. So happy 75th. Now, how can Joe Walsh be 75 years old, born in 1947, but the next happy birthday goes out to somebody obviously younger than Joe Walsh? John Bolton.
I kind of wonder what his age is.
He's 1 year younger than Joe Walsh, 74 today.
Okay.
John Bolton.
All right, well, that makes sense.
American security advisor and diplomat. And, of course, he served as U.S. ambassador in the early 2000s and then later as security advisor to Donald Trump. Not for the whole administration, because nobody that smart lasts in that administration, but from 2018 to 2019. And by my best judgment, he did good work and probably saved us from a lot of trouble. So all kudos go out to John Bolton.
Yeah, he wrote the book, The Room Where It Happened.
The Room Where It Happened. His sort of insider. And I don't really admire that kind of tell-all book, although it's probably needed to come out.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind reading it. I mean, it's just another testament to what we had as a president before Biden.
Yes.
And,
Yeah. And the less said about that, the better, although we may end up turning back around to it. And with that said, real quick, what have we been listening to this week? I've been listening to Nat King Cole and the song Straighten Up and Fly Right, which was actually first, he did that in a film, and then it was released as a single. Nat King Cole is amazing. What I didn't know about Nat King Cole until seeing these clips, not only a peerless singer, but a great jazz pianist. Not just a great pianist, but a great jazz piano is a whole different animal. I can't even when I see that. So great to see Nat King Cole. Link to that song performances in the show notes, which incidentally are already in the description on YouTube. And I have YouTube up here, but I have not been watching. I just got to catch up real quick on the chat here. Make sure I'm not missing any important questions or anything like that.
Why don't you do that, and I can say what I've been listening to or trying to listen to. So our good friend Sean Albert, who we did interview on the show, recommended a book. And I have not actually read a lot of historical biographies in a while, other than David McCullough's extraordinarily lovely biographies that he's done from the Wright brothers to all sorts of wonderful people.
Yeah, you can't beat David McCullough for that.
So, I started listening on Audible, The First Tycoon, The Epic Life of Cornelius Vanderbilt by T.J. Stiles. Well, I'll tell you, T.J. Stiles.
He's not David McCullough.
His style is not David McCullough. I mean, it is just so, like, it's. I don't want to. I'm trying to avoid scatological terminology here, But it is pretty poopy.
Well, the way you explained it to me was he takes enough swipes at his subject that you actually contacted Mr. Albert and said, Sean, it seems like this guy doesn't like the guy he's writing about. Why am I listening to this? But Sean is a professional educator, yes. So he's very much used to picking the wheat and the chaff apart.
Right,
and
exactly.
He's an expert at that.
Sidestep all of that nonsense. But, I mean, yeah.
And now that you know what you've gotten into,
right.
You maybe can be a little more prepared to do that,
Yeah,
too.
I should say this, that Sean's recommendation on the book was that it provided a lot more detail, but honestly, I think to myself, where did this person get this detail? Is it really accurate? A lot of it is kind of in the formula of, well, Cornelius Vanderbilt, well, he must have been thinking and feeling this because he went through this experience. Or he must have been, and it's like...
It reminds me of my unfortunate reading of The Passion of Ayn Rand, in which the author, whose name should not be spoken, did the whole book that way.
Voldemort.
Ayn Rand never showed any indication of jealousy, but she must have been thinking blah, blah, blah. Ayn Rand never showed anger in this but she must have been blah, 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 blah. So, that's no way to write a biography.
It was, It was really scattered, and the guy was, all he could say were negative things about him, and when he said pretty good, like when Cornelius Vanderbilt did something really good, he was suspect about it. That was his whole attitude.
And Sean's advice is appropriate, which is, when you read a book like that, you pick out the facts and forget whether the guy was saying this is good or this is bad. Just the dates and the information, and there's an inspiring story if you can pick out the facts.
Yes, there is. And I really should be reading this in book form instead of Audible, because then I'm not picking up some tone from the narrator. So
I would think that would be easier to skim through the direct and focus on the facts.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know. Does anybody know how to read paper books anymore?
I do sometimes.
It's we joked about that before, so I will leave that there. But I actually said grace at the Glow Thanksgiving, and we got Thanksgiving coming up this week. So if you're stuck on a proper prayer to say, I can just hear people out there saying, no, I just don't say a prayer. But the prayer that we said at Glow Thanksgiving was simply Ayn Rand's quote, the entry in the lexicon. Thanksgiving is a typical American holiday. In spite of its religious form, giving thanks to God for a good harvest, its essential secular meaning is a celebration of successful production. It is a producer's holiday. The lavish meal is a symbol of the fact that abundant consumption is the result and reward of production. Abundance is, or was and ought to be, America's pride, just as it is the pride of American parents that their children never need no starvation. I just love that, because we take abundance so much for granted. Or maybe we don't take it for granted, but we focus so much on the negative that we don't focus enough on everything we've got.
Well, speaking of focusing on all the things that we have, if you want to go ahead and put in the chat what your favorite Thanksgiving dish is, or your favorite thing about Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving favorites.
That isn't necessarily food. Please go ahead and share with us.
Yes. Well, last week, James Valliant and I did a great episode. I thought it was pretty good, and then the compliments started rolling in. I said, no, I guess it was great. On Leonard Peikoff. And it was Leonard Peikoff talking about himself. Answers from his book, Keeping It Real. That is worth listening to if you didn't see it. And I did an episode called A Defense of Marriage Act. Wait, I couldn't do an episode on marriage by myself. No, Amy and I did an episode of Life on Earth.
I was special guest star.
Amy hasn't been on Life on Earth in months. She's been pursuing other projects, but we actually made a deal. I won't say what maybe I will say what we traded for. But she came on the show, and it was great. A Defense of Marriage Act on Thursday in the show notes if you didn't see it yet. And the reason I mention all of that is because we've also got a couple things coming up. Reason why this show is going to be real quick, besides one of us is, you might not be able to tell, but one of us is a little under the weather. Also, at the top of the hour, Yaron Brook is coming on. Now, hey, I'm not afraid to compete with Yaron Brook, but he is doing a Rules for Life, and his Rules for Life shows are always pretty damn good. So obviously we got to wrap up well before that.
They're
also,
okay.
yeah, he's all right. But also this week on my show with James Valliant, we are doing the topic, Thankful? What for? And we're going to answer the question, given the state of things in America, do we still have good reason to be thankful on Thanksgiving Day?
Yes.
Now, you can imagine what my answer is, but we're going to review Leonard Peikoff's answer to that question. That's going to be good. Well, one of the things I'm thankful for, I even put a link in the show notes. One of the things that I'm thankful for are Arthur Murray Dance Centers. Doesn't it sound like we should be getting paid to say that? This is an unpaid testimonial. Arthur Murray Dance Centers, pretty damn good.
They are quite good, actually.
And we got friends who were learning to dance at one of these Arthur Murray Dance Centers. They told us about it. They liked it. We ended up actually going to a different one, and they're franchised. So you're like, well, one might not be as good as the other. But it turns out the one we went to is awfully cool, too. So we've taken lessons.
Yes.
Officially, we've only had 6 lessons so far, but real basics for somebody like me who can't dance at all. And it's great. I've told you before, you should dance. And if you can't dance, all the more reason why you should dance.
Yes.
But actually learning to dance is turning out to be great fun.
Oh, it is.
It's hard to take time out of your busy schedule and all of that. So what happened on Thursday? I asked Amy, the show, I'm not putting any pressure on you, she's doing her own things. But my show would be
busy.
Better with Amy on it.
Yes, because we were talking about marriage, right?
So Amy made me a deal.
Marriage is what brings us together today, right?
Yeah, she said she would come on the show.
Yep.
If I would join her, if I would take her out to the dance party that night.
The semi-private dance party at Arthur Murray.
Yes.
Where there were 2 other couples, and what was really fascinating about the process was that we start with Robert and I, and then everybody switched partners. Wow, fun!
Like a square dance.
So we had to
or an
dance
old
with
style
other
ballroom
people,
dance. We had to dance with other people.
Which really...
And in our group of 6, some of those people were very interesting.
They're very interesting.
Yes, capital I for interesting. What a night. So, again, you should be dancing, just like the Bee Gees said, Saturday Night Fever. You should be dancing, because dance is, well, it's great. Glow Thanksgiving was great. As I say, we did say that Thanksgiving, not prayer, not grace, but quote at the beginning of dinner. And it was great. 15 people, which is just the right number, because we had a 20-pound turkey that they almost finished off. The only thing left was a couple of drumsticks.
That I ate. That
you eventually ate as leftovers. We didn't eat all 20 pounds of turkey that night, but pretty darn close to it. And it was such a good night. It got us reminiscing about some of the great Glow events, the Great Lakes Objectivists events.
Yes.
And how some of them were described by friends and attendees as a love fest.
A love fest. Love fest.
A love fest. Here, there's my art for the day.
Aw, Love Fest.
Yes.
That's with the medium is Crayola.
Crayola crayons and a permanent marker. We do our art get-togethers on Tuesday nights and Sunday mornings. And if you've never come to Meeting for Art, absolutely contact us on, these are scheduled on Facebook. Get on Facebook if you're not there already and get invited to Meeting for Art. And we sit around and chat about anything that we've been doing lately that has to do with art. And some of it doesn't have anything to do with art, but it's always related in some way. One of the folks on the meeting today was showing, for example, she's been crocheting this, it's not an Afghan, it's a blanket. It's big, and she wants to make it big enough to cover the whole bed. All sorts of good stuff. And I often will sketch one of my little doodles like I did today during the episode.
Today we talked about performance in both dance and theater and how they're different and how they relate. Now that in itself is a really, I mean, I could talk about that all day long.
Yep.
And we had a couple of thespians in attendance, and it was really great fun.
Now that's not as public, as wide open as this is, because it's art, and people get a little cagey about getting opening up.
It's invitation only.
So contact us on Facebook.
Just
send us a message, or any of the many ways. Use my private email that's at robertnasir.com. However it is you want to get in touch with us, do that. The Oxford dictionaries actually have Lovefest listed. A Lovefest is an event or interaction characterized by mutual appreciation, affinity, or affection, especially when regarded as excessive or inappropriate. Thank you, Oxford dictionaries.
Wait, what was the last part again?
An event or interaction characterized by mutual appreciation, affinity, or affection, especially when regarded as excessive or inappropriate. The example they give is, the end of this meeting is turning into a love fest as each board member expresses admiration for all the others. Oh, we can't have that, can we?
I didn't get a harumph out of you.
So we love our love fests. When we have a glow meeting that turns out to be just kindred spirits and smiles and laughter, the more the better.
It's so much fun. And more people should have affinity for each other.
Yes. Affinity and appreciation and mutual appreciation. Yeah, like those mutual appreciation societies.
That's right.
And that's what we need more of.
Oftentimes that's what happens between Jimmy and James Valliant and Robert on the Peikoff Wednesdays. And when I was on there, we had that as well. So a little mutual admiration society, and it's really great. Sometimes you meet people and you think, that's nice. I guess they're nice people. And then you go on your way and you don't even really think about them or why you even like them. Or, so the more real and more explicit you can make your reasoning for why you like a person, you can share that information with them.
Yes.
Which is really the best thing to do ever, which is like better than the best. To give that to somebody, why you think that they're virtuous, what you like about them, stylistically even, their habits, perhaps their inclinations, their disposition. What do you like about them? And it's a wonderful thing, because then you can get that back from people. And it reminds me of a story from The Facets of Ayn Rand, when Ayn Rand was talking to Marianne Suarez, and Ayn Rand actually went up to Marianne and she said, "How do you perceive me? What do I, could you describe me?" And I forget exactly the whole story, but I know that she did that. She asked Marianne, and maybe it kind of caught Marianne off guard, genius of the world. Well, Ayn Rand was a woman, flesh and blood woman, and she was a genius of the world, but she needed to have some understanding from somebody who she trusted, from Marianne, how she was being perceived. What kind of disposition do I have? What's my temperament? How would you describe me to somebody objectively, or as objectively as you possibly could? And I think that's a very interesting thing to do, and it's very helpful too, and it can also be very, very lovely and good.
Yes. So I said this would be a quick episode. I have one quick point to make in relation to everything that we've talked about so far. An objectivist friend on Facebook, somebody wicked smart, very sharp, one of the moderators of the John Galt line, but in her own personal line, and she didn't make it public, so I'll leave her name out for now, but she just posted a quote by Carl Rogers. Now, listen to this and tell me what you think of this one. Carl Rogers: "People are just as wonderful as sunsets if you let them be." See, when I look at a sunset, I don't find myself saying, soften the orange a bit on the right-hand corner. I don't try to control a sunset. I watch it with awe as it unfolds.
Mm-hmm.
Read that again. People are just as wonderful as sunsets if you let them be. When I look at a sunset, I don't find myself saying, soften the orange a bit on the right-hand corner. I don't try to control a sunset. I watch it with awe as it unfolds. And I responded to this at the time because this hit me hard. I said, that's brilliant. Now, of course, we judge people and sunsets differently. You know, a sunset could be disappointing, but never evil. You know, we know the metaphysical versus the man-made. Still, we don't criticize or whine about or walk away from a beautiful sunset just because we can imagine a better one. So why do we do this with beautiful people? You know, but even more than that, think in the quote, he wraps up with, I watch with awe as it unfolds. Mm-hmm. You know, we should be watching one another with awe. Watching each other unfold, you know, a little more than we do. Rather than waiting for that one thing to jump on and say, oh, look, I have to judge you for this bit here.
Otherwise, I'm not a moral person if I don't judge you and condemn you for this thing. Which, you know, of course, if somebody does something that's that bad, you know, of course.
Yep.
But I've seen where people have judged other people for things that are not very, you know, having to do with anything about morality, or it's just completely blown out of proportion, and it's not fair.
Well, there's a way to get that right, and there's a way to get it wrong. So what I want to say real quick is, in accordance with the so-called fundamental attribution error, anybody who's studied logical fallacies or just psychological failure modes, you already know this one. The fundamental attribution error refers to an individual's tendency to attribute another's actions to their character or personality, while attributing their own behavior to external situational factors outside of their control. In other words, you tend to cut yourself a break because you know all the reasons you did what you did, while holding other people 100% accountable for their actions, as if they weren't facing any of these obstacles or had any of those reasons working against them. That's the fundamental attribution error, making a mistake on the fundamental thing you attribute their behavior to. Now, the other way of doing this, because I have friends who do this as well, just the reverse, to excuse everything that everybody else does. You know, so-called Pollyanna, on the premise, well, they must have had reasons for whatever they did.
They killed their parents. Because they were abused.
I mean, the metaphysical version of this is determinism.
Yeah.
You know, Sam Harris saying that criminals aren't morally to blame for what they did. They're determined. But, you know, we still have to put them in jail just pragmatically. While holding ourselves guilty for every little shortcoming, every failure, every time we were not able to overcome obstacles, because damn it, if I was good enough, I wouldn't have let those 10 things stop me. I've seen both. I've seen people who blame other people for everything and excuse everything they do because, well, but yeah, I had this going against me, I had this other thing, these other priorities, it wasn't in my hierarchy of values, 1,000 excuses. And I've seen the opposite, where people will say, well, they had a good reason for what they do. I don't want to blame them without knowing everything there is possibly to know. I think there's a book on that attitude called Truth and Toleration, the how-to manual on how to tolerate everything. But no, I shouldn't be picking on that. Point is, you get it. And I recommend making neither mistake. I recommend that you judge objectively from the premise of value orientation. Weigh your virtues heavily, but take care not to overweigh your failures, nor ascribe them to vice without substantial evidence. And do the exact same thing when you are judging other people, because the good things that people do are far more important than any failings on their part, assuming we're not talking about out-and-out evil or something that directly harms one of your values. And it's an art. It's not a science.
Yeah.
You will...
Go ahead. because, well, I just, there's a couple things here to kind of parse out. There's the idea of, content, and there's the idea of method. And there's the idea of habits. So, yeah, I mean, you can't judge yourself just strictly because of, particular position that you hold, certain belief that you have, and you can't just judge yourself from the actions you take, for instance. You have to go further than that introspectively and ask yourself, what is the method of thinking that I practice? And, that's obviously where objectivism comes in, and Ayn Rand's epistemology is just perfect and wonderful, and I love it. And it's so very helpful and life-saving, really. When you're judging other people, it can be you think, okay, well, actions are louder than words, than what they think. Actually, they're both relevant. At some point, you might actually get to know somebody deep enough to know how they think and what virtues they use. In other words, how rational they are, and the kinds of the kinds of the actions and thoughts that follow from using reason and being rational, in the form of other virtues like honesty, integrity, and justice, and so on. So yeah, you've got to look at your own method and other people's method to the extent that you can, and judge them in that way. Yeah, wouldn't you say, Robert?
I think there are real limits on what you can do in that regard.
Yeah, there are limits for other people, yes.
I would not want to even risk, much less actually do, psychologizing other people.
Oh, no.
I don't want to make excuses for them, right. And I don't want to ascribe motives to them without substantial evidence. Right. And even with the evidence, I will act not based on any conclusions I draw, but on the evidence.
Yes.
Knowing that I only know as much as I know. That's
right. And I should, one other quick thing is that I think it's important to understand that a relationship that you have in life, whether that's a friendship or a partner or even family, your dislike of them, if you don't like them for some reason, isn't arbitrary. As long as you keep thinking about it and try to understand why you're having that emotion or that particular evaluation of them. But in the meantime, if you can't completely articulate it, that doesn't mean that it's wrong of you to not see them again or to not be friends with them or whatever it is. It's important to know that, because there was a time in my life as an objectivist where I would parse things out so much, and I would say, well, is this person really, my friend or not? And it was really kind of hard to say. And I kept in this holding pattern of gathering data about, a particular person when I really should have not been their friend, because there were things that were deal breakers that happened, and those sorts of things vary from person to person, and it's okay that they do. And it isn't arbitrary. If you find that a person, you're not enjoying their company for some reason, you do not need to be around them.
Well, you've brought in the full context, which is more than I intended to do, and that's great. Because, when you decide if you're going to stay friends with somebody, a lot of times you will leave a friendship, and it doesn't have to be that you build an ironclad case and you make it public and you let everybody know why. No. In a lot of cases, especially in the case of just a casual friendship, much less in an online friendship, Twitter follower or a Facebook friend, you don't need to build that case. All you need to know is this person is not somebody that I want to maintain a relationship with.
Right.
Some of those can be, minor immoralities that don't need to be part of condemning somebody. So yes, incidentally, there's There's a couple of great comments from Robin in the chat, and I think he's playing off of some things we've discussed before, both solo and together on our shows. He says, it is more important to praise the good things in people. Mm-hmm. Well, we've talked about that. And then he says Sam Harris put his own mind in pragmatist jail.
Do not collect $200. Do not go.
And he says, I hope it can escape. I don't see that happening anytime soon, but I would certainly have that same hope. My whole point in the discussion, yes, is that we all can focus on our values, do what we've got to do to protect ourselves against disvalues, but always remember we are here to live a life and not to just not die. And that is why I encourage embracing your values and including embracing people for the good in them.
Yes.
Even if you have found things that disappoint you, so long as they bring value to your lives, so long as you can still celebrate the things that they have to offer, the things they have to say, so long as they are still dancing.
Yeah.
As I say, weigh virtue, account for virtue, give credit for virtue, weigh virtue heavily, and take care not to overweigh failures, nor to ascribe them to vice without substantial evidence. This is an art, not a science, and you will err. Err on the side of love.
That's great advice, Robert.
Well, that's why we try to build as many of these Lovefest occasions as we can. And with that said, my Post-it note of the week. My Post-it note of the week, what does it say? It says, straighten up and fly right. Well, I mentioned Nat King Cole earlier, who sang Straighten Up and Fly Right. The reason I'm putting this on my wall is because this is going to be a cozy week. This is going to be a sweet week. This is going to be a week of celebration. We got Thanksgiving, but more than that, it's the 22nd wedding anniversary for Amy and I. So this is going to be a cozy and sweet week.
Yes.
And I just got to remind myself that, straighten up and fly right, up early in the morning. And that relates to my homework for the week. Homework for the week is to continue with my gratitude posts on Facebook, 3 things a day. I know you've been loving it, or maybe you're sick of it by now, but either way, they're going to continue. You can ignore them if you like. And also my morning inspirational posts on Twitter will continue. That is my homework. I'm not giving myself any more than those 2 big things because it's Thanksgiving week. It is anniversary week, and I am feeling the love, full of the love, going to be given the love. You can act accordingly. After Thanksgiving, we jump right into Christmas mode. That's going to be fun, and we're going to have some good shows for that as well.
Oh, and I should say also, we visited Santa
We saw Santa yesterday.
We saw him, and he was just one of the greatest Santas ever. And
he was good.
He's so good.
Santa is on it.
So I want to make myself a T-shirt or something that says, Santa is my spiritual advisor. Because
I'm all for it.
He totally is. I love him so much. I love Santa. There are certain, we won't get into some issues here and there that, I disagree with and agree with, but I say that as an adult, you should believe in Santa. You should believe in benevolence, goodwill toward men, the idea of justice, and spiritual trade and spiritual values, and, not just toys and things like that, but those are very, very important too.
Good boys and girls and naughty boys and girls don't get the same stuff.
This is correct.
That is a life lesson that we all need to learn as young as possible.
Yes. So let Santa be your spiritual advisor, and his wonderful virtue of justice, and his productiveness, because gosh darn it all, is Santa productive.
He's the man.
He is.
Santa is the man. So, links in the show notes to all the things that you need, including past shows that we did over the last week, upcoming shows for the week coming up. Also, robertnasir.com. Why would you go to robertnasir.com? You know why to go to robertnasir.com. If you ever wanted to put in a super chat and you thought, oh yeah, they don't have super chat yet, that's easy. You go to paypal.com and send a few dollars, send a little love our way. Same thing with Patreon. Both of those links are at robertnasir.com. you know what to do. And with that said, we're going to run. I said I would keep it short. We're going to keep it short. We're not going to we're 20 minutes shorter than we were last week. Yay. If I manage to wrap it up and say thank you so much for being here, you make it all worth doing. We wish you every success, all of the happiness that you, and I do mean you, so richly deserve. Have a fine Thanksgiving. We'll see you next Sunday. In the meantime,